Relationships spark productivity. And that's what leaders miss. They think they can just skip it and they can just line up all their little machines in a row and get them working. It's a group of like whole humans, like complete people with lives and emotions that need to be cared for and appreciated.
You're listening to HR Superstars, a podcast brought to you by 15Five. On this show, we talk to strategic people leaders who are making a meaningful impact in their organizations and shaping the future of work. So get ready to be inspired and discover the secrets behind building high-performing teams and fostering a culture of growth and thriving. The future of HR starts here. I'm Karina Young, our VP of People here at 15Five, and I'm so glad that y'all are joining us today for a conversation about bringing humanity back into the workplace and into productivity in particular. So many leaders talk about productivity as if it's separate from people, as if somehow caring too much about how people operate and who they are will slow down the business results. And it's very real, right? Like we feel that fear from our leaders, sometimes from our boards, of how do we balance these two things? But what we've learned as HR leaders, and what our guest Jordan today really deeply believes as well, is that humanity and performance aren't opposites. They actually fuel each other's fire. And when employees start to feel seen, trusted, and supported, they don't just feel better inside, they actually perform better. They can collaborate more, innovate faster, and really stay longer. All of those metrics that our execs and our boards care about us reporting on. So we know that the data backs this up, but we also feel like it's really hard to sometimes validate our perspective on this. Why should we be caring about humanity alongside performance? How do we really bring them together? And so that's the conversation we're going to have here today, because this is more than just engagement surveys or quarterly goals. It's really about helping us all rethink what we mean when we say the word performance. The most productive teams aren't the ones who are just grinding the hardest or in their seats 24 hours a day. It's the ones who are actually aligned around the purpose of your organization, connected to their teams, and really energized by the work that matters. I'm really excited to introduce Jordan and have him here with us today. Jordan Peace is the CEO and co-founder of Fringe, a lifestyle benefits platform that helps companies give employees more choice and flexibility in how they're supported at work and beyond. Jordan has spent years studying what really drives engagement and retention, and it's not perks for the sake of perks. So no more pizza parties. It's really trust, belonging, and the freedom to feel human at work, maybe pizza here and there. So Jordan, welcome to the podcast. Give me the movie trailer version of who you are and how you got to be leading Fringe.
Wow, that'd be a scary movie trailer. It would just be an overwhelmed father just hiding in his closet trying to get work done. Yeah, so I mean, the short version of me, I used to be in financial planning. I had like no business being an entrepreneur, but I had an idea and I shared it with friends. I shared many ideas with my friends. And most of those ideas were shut down pretty quick. Like, dude, there's already somebody doing that. Or like, I don't know, that sounds a little wild. The market's not ready, whatever. But I had the idea for Fringe, the company I'm the co-founder and CEO of now. And my friend Chris, who's now my COO, was like, this is the one. And so we started a company together about 7 years ago. So I have this interesting life where my co-founders are all long-term friends. Two of them are 20 plus year friendships. And the other is a 10 plus year friendship. And it's a full and wild life trying to raise a household of 5 kids and run a business and everything else. But it's also pretty great. And I am just like 1000% a believer that it is about the people. It is about not just investing in people because other people are, and you got to compete. And that's all true. You know, we do have to compete with others who might want to recruit our people, but also, it's just, what are we doing it for? You know, like, why are we in this thing? Why are we running businesses if not to connect with people, to provide something valuable to the world and help human beings thrive? And if the people aren't thriving in our own organization, then how do we expect our product or service to help anyone else thrive?
Well, you came to the right place with people. We're going to get into tons of good stuff. Maybe let's start with just a general question for you, which, what do you think made companies start separating performance from people in the first place? Like, why does that just feel so naturally segmented in a business?
It probably comes down to the fact that it's easier for us to segment our brains into like this is work and this is life.
Mm.
This is a transaction. I work for you. I perform these certain tasks and duties. You pay me. I go home and my life exists at home. And that's, yeah, I think for many decades made more sense than it does now. You know,
Yeah.
now I think people are involved with less things at home. They have less community. They're involved with less social organizations and so forth. And we spend more time in our home. We spend more time. We were joking before we started recording about ordering on Amazon and how many delivery people we're keeping employed. But life is much more isolated. You know, COVID obviously was like the peak of that. But as a result, I think people are actually looking for community more at work than ever. You know, so the idea that it's
Yeah.
disconnected or transactional is just devastating because, I mean, it ought to be the place where we're going to spend, I don't know how many hours people work, but let's call it 8 to 10 hours a day working with people on some mission, some goal, some task we're trying to accomplish together. And if it doesn't feel like we're connected to each other, it doesn't feel like we have relationships that might even extend beyond work hours or beyond the time that we work for this particular organization, then where are we making friends? Where are we finding
Mhm.
spouses? Where are we, you know, like
Yeah.
finding community and a place to belong? I don't know. And so I think it's really sad that it has become that way. But, you know, I think people just want to stay safe and maintain
Mhm.
this professionalism. And I think it's just an executive's cop out of not getting to know his or her people, you know, and
Yeah.
not really treating people like fully human beings that have a life and a family and goals and dreams and hopes, but
Yeah.
they're just a role and a salary and a human resource, which is not my it's not my favorite expression. I think we need to rebrand
Yeah.
HR. Humans are
Yeah.
not resources, they are humans. You know?
Yes.
So I think
Yeah.
where it comes from, and then unfortunately, I think AI has made it all worse because I think a lot of leaders think, oh, well, maybe I don't need as many of these skill sets that these people that cost me money, because that's how they think of it, sadly. Maybe I don't need that as much, but they're missing the entire point. Business is about relationships. People buy things from us because they trust us. And guess what does not build trust? AI. AI does not build trust at all. Try putting an M dash in your next LinkedIn post and saying get attacked for it. Like people don't like it. And they might use it, and it's a good tool, a valuable tool. I'm in on that. But at the same time, my people that work for Fringe, they are the ones that establish trust with prospects, trust with customers,
Mhm.
trust with our brand partners, with our channel partners. If it wasn't for the people, we
Yeah.
would have nothing. The irony is, I think people are more important since the dawn of AI, not less, but we haven't figured
Yeah.
it out yet.
Yeah, it hasn't quite connected. When you said something that was really interesting, just about that businesses are all about relationships, that any function that, we probably think, which is either a revenue organization or your engineering, your technical talent, right? There is a relationship aspect to what makes those work well. It's not just the dollars and cents, because you actually don't get there without the relationship and navigating it. I mean, I'm sure in both of our organizations, like I work with our sales team all the time to think about, okay, this is how HR leaders think, and this is what the community is like, so they can build those meaningful relationships, not treat it like a transaction. So I love what you said about that there. When you look at organizations who have this disconnect, who really feel like they've lost that touch between their humanity and their results, what does that look like? Like, what do you think are the most common symptoms?
When I was writing the mission, vision, and values for Fringe, one of the things that I wrote in there was about cynicism. And
Mm.
like that, one thing that I see in a lot of office cultures or maybe remote office cultures these days, but I hate this expression. People will say, hey, how's it going? And somebody will respond, living the dream, right? But they don't mean it. They don't mean it at all, right? It's like this
Yeah.
incredibly cynical attitude of like, my boss is bad and their boss is bad and my company doesn't care and we're just punching a clock and thank God it's Friday and all like the attitude. And I don't blame
Yeah.
people if you live within a culture where you don't feel a sense of belonging or that you cared about or appreciated, then I get how the cynicism forms, but once it's formed, it's just this insidious kind of cancerous part of culture that's really hard to come back from. And so I am really like critical of that and like really
Mhm.
will address it when I see it and be like, hey, what's up? you know,
Yeah.
and kind of go, why are you feeling like it's not the dream? How could it actually be the dream? You know, so
Mm.
I think that's one symptom. I don't know why I can't say the word
Right.
symptom today. Is cynicism. It is just insidious. We got to rip it out of culture. I think another piece would be blame shifting. I think if you live in a world where if your fear is if I make a mistake, then I'm going to get downgraded or deprioritized or even fired, as opposed to if I make a mistake, that might be because I was pushing, taking risk, trying things, being innovative,
Right.
right? And that would actually be praised and rewarded. Like, hey, that didn't go well, but that was a cool test. Like, what test are you going to run next? What are you going to try out next? And in innovative companies, that's how risk is seen and that's how risk is
Mm.
assessed. So I think that's
Oh,
another
yeah.
piece too, is just that blame shifting of like, yeah, that project didn't go well. What happened? Well, yeah, so Jerry over there, like he said, and then Melissa, and then she got involved, and then all of a sudden it's like we're trying to just spread blame around to everybody. And so when you see a lack of ownership, like a lack of people being
Mm.
like, that was me, and here's what I was
Mm.
trying to do. If they don't feel the psychological safety to do that, then you're just gonna have a
Yes.
really kind of bland and unoriginal organization, where people are just trying to like stay in their lane and do what they're told. And people
Oh,
are
yeah.
so much more capable than just doing what they're told.
Well, and so much of that even what you're talking about with cynicism, but really with the blame shifting to me is rooted in fear, like a
Yes.
fear of how am I going to be perceived? If I do this thing, will the leaders change how they trust me or how they view me? There's some break in that psychological safety, like you just called out, that isn't allowing people the freedom to think creatively. And that lack of psychological safety is such a mental constraint. It's just like this belt around your brain that's like tightening. And like we can't operate well like that. Like we can't even hit normal results in that kind of a world. But it's this, I often notice HR leaders are struggling between, well, we've got this high demand organization. Like we have things we just have to get done. They need to happen. It's so fast paced, big pressure, big results. But how do I fit people in there? Like, and that can
Mhm.
feel like a square peg in a round hole sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and it's gotten harder, right? I mean, it used to be that in between meetings there was the water cooler time and the let's all go get lunch and these side
Mm.
conversations in the hallway, and you were able to establish rapport and build some trust and check in on your weekend and how I heard you were sick last week, how you feeling, all that stuff. Then now you get on a Zoom and somebody's like, here's our agenda for the day. And you just go and people are not treating each other like human beings. So one of the practices that we have at Fringe is like no business for at least 5 minutes at the beginning of a meeting. And we try to stretch it to 10 of just like check on each other, be a person, make a joke, tell a
Yeah.
story, like something before you get into your agendaed work, because otherwise people feel disconnected, like it's transactional, right? But if somebody just spent the time to check on me, to go, how was your weekend? How I know your kid was sick last week. How's he feeling? All of a sudden I'm bought into whatever they're trying to accomplish today. I'm like, how can I help?
Yeah.
Like it's relationships that spark the productivity. And that's what leaders
Mm.
miss. They think they can just skip it and they can just line up all their little machines in a row and get them working, but
Yeah.
it's not an assembly line. It's a group of like whole humans, like complete people with lives and emotions that need to be cared for and appreciated. And when they are, man, you can ask them for anything and they'll knock down doors, jump through hoops because they're bought in. But I don't know.
Yeah.
We're so stubborn. We think that treating people well and spending time on the relationship, that's like soft and like like we kind of segment that
Yeah.
as like not business. And I'm like, hell yeah, that's business. That is like right at the heart of business, actually. Yeah.
So, what would you say to HR leaders who are listening to this, feeling like, yes, Jordan, I am with you. Like, I am that person. I believe in people. But
Yeah.
when I sit down with my CFO, how do I get them to believe
Mm.
what you believe? Like, how do you help leaders cross that bridge and have more influence and why people and relationships matter?
Yeah, and the answer to that is tough because you got to do things that are uncomfortable, right? Like the
Such as life.
executives need to be sold, not told, sold. You need to set up your value prop. You need to say, "Hey, I would guess as an executive, you want to get the most out of your people. Yes. Okay. We agree on that. Cool. Right. What this study from MIT, and there is one, shows that happy employees are 8 times more productive than those that are unhappy. This study shows that engaged employees are X number, what, show the data, show the stats, prove it out, get into the other side of the brain, the data side of the brain where a lot of executives tend to live, right?
Yeah.
And show them mathematically. Because I think the hard part is to go, well, don't you care about people? I care about people. Like, look at these people. We should care
Yeah.
about them. We should. And sometimes you just have a great leader. And like, if you have a great leader, then you're on this podcast going like, yep, I'm living the life. Like, this is awesome.
Living the dream.
Right. But assuming you're in the 80% of companies that don't have a great culture because they don't have a leader that really gets it, you're going to have to go in and do some selling. You got to establish a baseline of like, if you can't get that executive through data and through that argument and through storytelling and through repeatedly showing him or her, hey, we did this and now this person is performing this way and they used to be performing that way. Like, look at the results. If that doesn't convince them because they're just too tough or too cold or too unfeeling or whatever, maybe that's just not the place to work, but like you got to get them there. Like that's the job of the HR person who cares about people is to make sure that everybody else cares too. And if you do that successfully, man, your job's going to be a lot easier, like way
Yeah.
easier.
Well, it comes back to what you were saying earlier about business being about relationships. In many ways, the HR function has to be a salesperson for what we are doing, right? Like we are constantly pitching and trying to influence and put this story together, but it's not always a natural skill set within HR. Like many of us don't join this world because we love to sell to people. We love it because we care about people. And I notice, and I've certainly felt this way in my career, like this mental friction of, oh my gosh, like why don't you just get it? Like how do you not get and feel what I'm feeling?
Yeah.
But of course they don't. Like we all come with a different perspective. And what you're saying actually makes me think of this little video that I was watching around how to influence and negotiate, which is like this 4-step process. And it starts with a you question, which you set it up there perfectly. Like I imagine as an executive, you really care about retaining these 5 people who are so important to your function and are great leaders we want to invest in. Like get that initial buy-in agreement that you both have the same goal. Amazing. In order to do that, this is what I know about Jordan and Molly and Jeffrey and Sam. This is actually what's happening. Here's what we can do. Come with some of that data and really pitch your story. Yeah. But and also know like it takes time. It's not always one pitch, one conversation, and you nail it. Yeah. Like you have to have the persistence to be like, great, I got you 5% of the way there today. I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to keep proving to you that this matters.
And I think my recommendation for anybody that's not naturally gifted at sales is exactly that. Ask questions. Let the person you're trying to sell themselves by simply just asking questions. Get their advice. Hey, like I feel like these 5 people, to use your example, they're really talented. They're great communicators. They're smart, but they just don't seem like altogether engaged. Like something's off. How could we solve that? If you were in my role, how would you get them engaged? And like maybe make the executive get into your shoes for a minute and be like, oh man, I usually don't have to solve that problem. Maybe like put them on their heels a little bit in a respectful, easy kind of way. But I'm just asking questions. Like no one gets offended by somebody just asking questions.
Employee engagement is the ultimate driver of your organization's performance. So it's one thing to measure it, but 15Five's performance management platform helps you maximize engagement with easy, customized surveys that transform your data into guided actions with clear results. Learn more at 15five.com or click the link in the show notes.
Tell me, Jordan, a little bit about your perspective on this people first leadership. What do you think when you hear that, or what are kind of misconceptions around that you often find?
There are 3 categories of leaders in my mind. I think I've said this before other places, but there are some people that they just absolutely love people. Like it's just a joy for them to employ other people, to see them thrive, to get to know who their family is and that type of thing. They just do. And that's a rarity. It's maybe 10% of leaders, 20% maybe that just fully get it. There's another side that just like, man, they're just playing chess. Like there's no people involved. Like there's just pawns and knights and bishops and rooks and like, it's hard for them to even see the human. And then I think there's a big swath in the middle that I think when they go home, they care about their people. They care about their family. They care about their community, their friends. They get it. Then they go to work and they turn that side of their brain off. And when they hear people first culture, they're kind of like, let's just get the job done. Not recognizing that in order to get the job done, you got to be about the people first, right? You can't go anywhere. You can't drive a bus with everybody on the bus leaning to one side, leaning to the right, and you're trying to turn left. The thing won't turn left. You know what I mean? Like you have to get everybody cooperating. And the only way to do that, you can't demand it. You can't force it. People can quit. People can go get gig work. There's other options these days. And even if you could, like, do you really want a company where you're just forcing people to perform your will, right? Like, wouldn't it be so much more productive and enjoyable for everybody to just cast a vision, cast a direction and go, hey, do you want to jump on? And they will jump on, but they'll only jump on if you care about them and you show that care and you scale that care through your organization. I think from a misconception standpoint, I mean, I get this a lot because I'm one of those like more naturally people first leaders that I get this kind of like a disrespect that I'll get sometimes from other leaders that are just like, what's with all the soft stuff? What's with all the people stuff? Like, do you have the strategy chops? Do you have the tactical chops? You know what I mean? It's like as if these things are like opposed to one another somehow. Which like, I don't get that. Like if you take sports, for example, you could have like the most talented team on planet Earth and they get out there on the field and the quarterback snaps the ball and everybody's just going like all sorts of different directions. Like they're not going to win like at all. There has to be a plan. There has to be a strategy there and people have to follow that. And if they don't, then all your best laid plans are worthless, So I think that's kind of the rub is like, for whatever reason, so many leaders don't understand that this is a absolutely essential part of your strategy is investing in your people, and then actually poorly laid plans can work out pretty well because you have people that will innovate on those poorly laid plans and make sure that they come to fruition in the best possible way. So
even though you maybe like feel that disrespect or that whatever it is from people who look at you and are like, okay, do you have the chops? It certainly doesn't seem to deter you from continuing to advocate for people. What is that? Like, is that just a natural passion you've had? Or like, what is it that keeps you going even in the face of people saying, I'm not sure people do matter?
The answer is kind of deep, actually. So,
that's what we're here for.
I mean, the answer to that is like, I care about more about the people than the money. At the end of the day, like I know I'm right, so I know I'm right that investing in people is actually the most strategic thing you can do. Like, I know that is a fact. I've seen it play out and I've seen even in my own organization, we've had ebbs and flows of like people being really bought in and then maybe not because of some bad news or some misconception or some dumb thing that I said that I meant this, but they perceived it as that. Like I've had these ebbs and flows culturally even here. And so I see it play out. But the other thing, the deeper thing is like at the end of my life, what am I going to look back on and value? Like I'm going to value the relationships. They're really the only thing worth investing in your life. Like what you can't take the money with you. You can't take the accolades with you. Nobody cares about your resume when you're 75 years old. You don't need a job. I'm not going to care how many LinkedIn followers I have. I'm going to care about how many real life relationships, how many people did I impact? How many people are showing up to the funeral? How many people look back and say, man, that guy impacted my life and impacted my career. He remembered my kids' names. Like that's what life is about. And we all know it. We all know deep down that that's what life is about. But then we get to work and for some reason we want to act like machines and talk like machines. And I'm like, stop with all the corporate BS and just treat each other like humans. If we want to talk like machines, let's just get AI to talk to itself, and agents to talk to each other. They can do that. But if you want to be a valuable human being at work, then show up as a human. Bring the creativity, bring the emotion, bring the care. That's what we have as humans. Those are our assets,
Yeah,
right?
the unique thing that AI will not replace, right, is
Exactly.
that
And
level of true interest and care. And it's
yeah,
interesting, Jordan. I've certainly had moments in my career where I put work before myself, my family life, because that's what I had been taught was valuable. And one of the most meaningful kind of statements that got me to reflect differently on that was, okay, well, this boss that I'm doing this for, this project, this program, this accolade, are they going to show up at my funeral and thank me for the 100 hours of work I put in the last couple of weeks? Are
mm,
they going to say, we're so glad you fixed that email at 7:30 at night on a Wednesday instead of being at your daughter's gymnastic class? Thank you so much.
right.
No, they will not. Like, no, none of them will be there to do that. Who's going to be there, to your point, are the people who you really build connection and relationship with and who care about you as a person. And that is what matters. It's
Yeah.
just so easy to put the blinders on at work and be like, no, it's just this. It's this
Mhm.
email, it's this thing. It's like this project, this presentation.
Yeah. And mostly out of fear, to your point earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what's driving us a lot of times. It's just like, I'm
Yeah,
just afraid to not be valuable,
exactly.
or I'm afraid I won't get noticed or get the promotion or whatever. Yeah.
What's the advice that you would give to, an HR leader moving toward real meaningful events that actually do care about getting people together, but
Yeah.
try not to dip your toes in the toxic positivity pool?
I've been accused of that. I think the reason why positivity feels toxic at times is because it feels disingenuous, right? It feels disingenuous because, as we say in the South, somebody's trying to put lipstick on a pig. In other words, you don't actually have a base culture that is good. You don't actually have a group of individuals that trust each other, care about each other, know about each other's lives. And then you just try to throw events on top of that, right? And like come bond. And the feeling is like, I don't want to bond. I don't know you.
Mhm.
Or worse, I don't trust you, right? Or this just feels like just not valuable, right? Like you don't have to convince your friends to hang out with you. You don't have to convince people that trust you. You don't have to make a big pitch about how they're going to have a food truck and we're going to have face painting and you should come. Like you just send out a text and you're like, let's hang out tonight. You know what I mean? So the reason why it feels toxic is because it's this very like try hard thing that's happening on top of again a base culture that's like not actually healthy. So first, before throwing events at people, you got to do it more organically. You got to have relationships that are much more real, where you just send a Slack on a Monday morning and say, how was your weekend? Like it's just basic human skills that we all have, that we employ at home and we employ in our community and in our neighborhood and everywhere else, but then we turn it all off at work, right? And we
Yeah.
say like weird things to each other, like let's take this offline and get aligned on our next steps. Like what is that sentence? Like why not just say, what are we doing next? Like so like we just need to stop being weird and like
Yeah.
talk to each other like humans and be normal and check on each other and respect each other. I actually started a document that I called my corporate detoxification program. And it was something that I was going to give to employees when they started here, of just like, here's all the stuff that you need to stop saying,
Oh my
and all the
gosh.
ways that we're going to treat each other like normal humans. And I never finished it, but I should because it would probably do well out there.
Oh, please. We would all love to see the end result of that. You talked a little bit about pitching in that kind of influencing situation with a leader of, okay, start with a question, get them bought in, put some data behind it. Is
Yeah.
there anything else, either internal metrics or external metrics, that you find really help be able to pitch this and make the case?
What are we trying to sell in this case?
Yeah, if we're trying to sell being more people focused, right? Like you're in an organization, you want them to focus more on people care, humanity, engagement, building real relationships, psychological safety.
I mean, I think the best way to sell anything is to tell a story. So what I would do is I would go out and find an organization, maybe one of your friends work at, or one that you could even just research and find a place that has an incredible culture. And some of them are kind of famous. Zappos is a good example, or Gusto is known to have a great culture, or like, this is stuff that you could ask ChatGPT. Reach out to a person there. Reach out to kind of your equal, so to speak, on the HR team and go, hey, can I interview you? Like, I just want to know what you guys are doing, what the impact of that is. if you'll share anything about engagement or productivity with me, like build your use case, like think like a salesperson. When our salesperson goes into a call, they do all this prep work. Like they know a lot about their organization. They know what their stated goals are. If they're public, they've like read their public documents and they're like ready. Yeah, they know more about the organization than sometimes the HR leader does.
Yeah.
So like prepare yourself. Do your it's easy to do research these days. I mean, you just get on ChatGPT and just ask your questions. And it'll just give you endless amounts of information. And then go and tell a story. Right? Like, hey, I was reading about this company. I actually reached out to somebody because I was so fascinated by their productivity numbers. I was so fascinated by how people stay a really long time, or that 90% of their new employees are from referrals, like internal referrals, because people are proud to work there and they recruit their friends. And would you agree that we would want to be an organization like that? Yes, cool. Here's what I found.
Yeah.
If they say no, just like hand them, just come with 2 documents, come with the case study and your resignation, and then just decide which of the moment, I guess.
If they don't, well, it's a great way to build that business case. And I do think going out and getting data, certainly you had mentioned MIT report. I mean, there's tons of validated studies that you could look in Harvard Business Review. You can look in Gartner. You can look in all these big organizations that are known to be experts in studying workplaces and people and culture, right? So if you have a leader, and I've certainly worked with them, who love to nitpick of where's this data point and that data point, right? Like, again, go to your community, like you said, Jordan, find someone, connect with them and talk to them, talk through with them of like, how am I going to pitch this together? Because that's really what's going to help build the muscle, right? I imagine when your salespeople prep for a meeting, they're also not sitting alone in a phone booth doing it. They might be asking someone a question of like, hey, you pitched a similar company. What worked for you? Or this is what I'm thinking. Like, hear me and give me some feedback. You've got to have some partner. And even better if you can find an executive who has that people passion to be like, I need to pitch this to X person and I'm a little bit worried they're going to come back to me with this feedback. Will you be them in this meeting? I'm going to give you my pitch. Tell me what lands and what doesn't. Yeah. That's how you get better, is just trying and practicing it over and over again.
Yeah, you're not going to get better without actually just doing it. Don't expect that just like one attempt is it. Now, all of a sudden, the whole company has changed. Like, you really have to just keep going at it. And really, with any role in an organization, like, you are the chief salesperson for your function. You got to go sell the execs on why what you're doing matters and why they should invest in it. Not just monetarily, but like they should put mental and emotional energy into what you're doing, because it matters.
Yeah. Even just to reframe yourself as a chief salesperson of the people function of engagement, like that's actually your role. That's just a totally different mindset to enter with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a CEO, like what enters my brain is what people put there. I got stuff I'm thinking about. I got investors and I've got, the board to manage and I've got stuff. But if the director of, say, brand relationships, reaches out and goes, hey, can I get your opinion on something? And I get on a call and she helps me understand what her issues are and ask for my advice. I'm like, I really like her. People like getting asked for their advice, and my brain is on that for an hour that day. And it may not have been on that for the last month because it's just filled with everything else that people are putting in front of me. So you really just have to be visible.
You said it earlier about asking questions, that everybody likes to be asked questions. And that's a really interesting way to think about starting to sell this. If you're trying to sell belonging or engagement into your workplaces, even just to sit down with that leader who you feel is in most opposition to it and say, I just want to ask you questions about this. I really want to get your perspective. And just spend the time getting curious. And then come back to them and be like, I'm so glad we had this conversation. This is what I took away. And now here's this connection I want to make. But just people love to talk about themselves and their opinions and perspectives. Lean into it. There's nothing wrong with using that to your advantage for the benefit of your people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say let salespeople help you too. So if you're trying to buy a piece of software, for example, like some sort of HR software, have the salesperson help you pitch the C-suite. Like that's their job. Like that's what they're good at. So like, hey, can we have a meeting, like some sort of like value prop meeting where you can help prepare me for my pitch? 100% of salespeople will say yes to that question and will help you.
I think what you said earlier about cynicism resonated with some people. In just the world where everyone feels inundated with news about layoffs and overhiring and AI is taking jobs, and can people even trust employers? Where do you even see as like a starting point if cynicism feels overwhelming?
Yeah, cynicism is a protective muscle, right? So what we're doing when we're cynical is we're saying nothing good's going to happen, nothing matters. It's all just darkness and despair, right? Like that. We're just taking on this self-protective attitude of like, I'm going to have the lowest expectations for my job possible so that I'm not disappointed. So
Mm.
that just tells you that somebody's really disheartened by their work experience. And all it takes, and this is the same for a kid or somebody who's 30 or 40 or 80 years old, is just to take 5 minutes and show that you care about them. Just ask a question about people's lives. Like that's how you change cynicism. That's how you solve it. That's how you heal, so to speak, from that type of mentality in your culture is just start to communicate personal one-on-one care. You don't have to be people's best friends. You don't have to sit in a circle and sing Kumbaya. Just ask a question. My COO is probably the very best, which is kind of not stereotypically the role, but he's probably the very best question asker in my life. He's also my best friend and has been for 20 years. And probably because of that, because whenever I'm around him, I feel interesting. I feel like he cares about me. I get to tell him about my weekend or how I'm feeling or what I talked about in therapy or whatever the case may be. Like, it's just a joy to be around people that express care through asking questions. And so I think the solve is not a program or a piece of software or anything. It's really just set that example of caring for people in a personal way. And their attitude will change really quickly because the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
reason they're acting that way is because they don't feel like anybody cares.
Well, and even if it's the employee or, oftentimes we have a manager who has that sense of indifference and cynicism, and they're like,
Yeah.
it's not going to matter. I've got 10
Right.
people on the team and our job's super hard and we just laid off half the org. And what's one meeting going to do? And I do think there's a really beautiful power in just modeling that for someone, the care that you see them not receiving.
Yeah.
Just, you don't have to change them in one meeting or 1 month, but just start giving them a little bit of care
Yeah.
and see if you can get that to start trickling down, because we all want that. Like we all have certainly a human need and a desire for it. No one's going to be better by being locked out, right? But if it's just kind of creating that relationship and connection. As we wrap up, Jordan, where can people find and connect with you or with Fringe? Like, where can our audience go to learn more?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just maybe follow me on LinkedIn. I put out a decent amount of content. I answer my DMs. I really enjoy engaging with people on there. I can't multitask, so I just have one platform. Like I don't even do Instagram or anything else. But on LinkedIn, I'm active. And that's probably the great place to learn about Fringe or to learn about just people first leadership, more importantly, and about just anything related to future of work, all of that type of stuff. So please give me a follow on LinkedIn or reach out on LinkedIn. And if you want to check out Fringe's website, we did just launch a new website on Monday, so I'm kind of excited about it. It's just fringe.us.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for joining us today. I think if I take anything away from our conversation, it's just that business is about relationships at the end of the day, every single part of it. And we really have to prioritize that. Jordan, absolute pleasure.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks all.
Struggling with churn of your top performing employees? Reducing employee turnover can't happen overnight. But properly designed employee experiences can predict and prevent turnover and ensure your top performers stay at your organization and contribute to its ability to thrive. If you want to learn more, check out 15.5's ebook, The HR Leader's Guide to Reducing Regrettable Turnover. You'll learn the different types of turnover, how to define regrettable turnover and what drives it, and how to keep your top performers around longer. The link is in the show notes.